Good morning and welcome to Ask the Security Guy. I am Holly Magnuson and I am here with Shawn Kohrman.
Good morning.
And good morning, Shawn. It's good to be back. It's been a while.
It has been. Glad to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. And we're going to talk about a topic near and dear to your heart and many of us, and that's identity theft. Because it's something that happens to too many people, and we're going to talk about that. Before I hand it over to you to start talking about that, Shawn, as a reminder, if you're watching this, you probably see in the lower left-hand corner on the YouTube a link that says join the conversation. So if you have a question for Shawn about what he's talking about, you can click on that link, join the conversation, and that'll take you to the Q&A app where you can type a question, and either throughout the presentation or at the end, we'll ask Shawn these tough questions. So Shawn, I'm going to throw it over to you and to talk about the IRS breach.
So identity theft, like you mentioned, is truly a topic near and dear to my heart. That is really, one of the major end games for a lot of the criminal activity we see online. Stealing somebody's identity, opening credit cards, buying houses, boats, opening lines of credit, new bank accounts, that kind of thing. Just in fact, about 3 weeks ago, I was on a vacation day with my sons, and I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. So I let it go to voicemail, and it said it was from my bank, and they were calling me about a fraud alert and blah, 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 blah. And the message sounded kind of funky. So I checked on my phone. I have a banking app with my bank, and I checked that, and all of a sudden I noticed I had a new checking account with a negative $800,000 balance.
Wow.
So now I know good and well that I did not buy a yacht, even though I thought, But anyway, didn't buy a yacht. So I called the number that I knew from my bank and talked to them about it. And they told me, yes, in fact, they had tried contacting me that morning and verified that the message that had been left was from them. And then we went through a series of steps to verify what had happened, what they said. And what had happened was they noticed the account getting created. It was created online, just an empty checking account. Somebody had gotten some of my information enough to open the account, but they were in Davis, California. So, red flag right there. So, I worked with the folks at the bank. They were great. Put in a series of additional security controls to prevent that from happening. And then I followed my own steps, the ones I have published on security.ap.edu for, a compromised, a stolen identity, because for them to have enough information to open a checking account means that they had, technically my identity has been stolen. And like I've mentioned before, for everyone, it's not a matter of if, it's when. Your data lives online in places you can't control. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is our dearly beloved Internal Revenue Service. Before we dig into that, though, I wanted to go over some statistics. Last year, in 2015, hacking incidents, and now those are instances where a criminal actively broke into the electronic services of an organization, has reached a 9-year high of 37.9% of all recorded incidents. Okay. So that is a jump of 8.4% over 2014. So we're seeing a sharp increase in that type of cybercrime. Now, what's interesting was the second biggest was the employee error negligence category was at 14.9%, which is more than double of what was reported in 2012. So we're seeing a sharp increase in the employee negligence category as well. What that means was a simple human error, somebody made a mistake, transmitted a file they shouldn't have transmitted via email. Basic things that you would not think would cause a breach have caused numerous breaches.
Now,
And
are we
that
talking?
number, go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry, Shawn. Are we talking what employees? Are we talking bank employees, credit card employees? Who's the employees?
This is general. So
Okay.
this is just any employee worldwide. Doesn't matter, industry, rank, anything. This is just employee error. So it could be a C-level person who sent an email with a confidential file that wasn't encrypted. That would qualify as employee error or negligence. Down to, any line level staff person doing the same thing. So from a categorization standpoint, we don't care what level of the organization they're in. It's the type of action that was taken that led to the breach is what we're looking at. So another little tidbit, the number of breaches involving Social Security numbers in 2015 totaled 338. Now that's a modest increase of 1.8% over the 325 reported in 2014. However, this involved 164 million records worldwide. So just to give some context around this, that's 164 million just in that category involving Social Security numbers.
Wow.
Now, when we say worldwide, that's because SSNs can exist in systems outside the U.S., even though their its primary use is within the U.S. Right? There are other identifiers for international entities. So really, what you could say is that's 164 million U.S. identities. So just take a second to process that.
I really don't want to. That's the reason it's so cheap to buy an identity, right?
Well, to borrow a line from a movie, the odds are not in your favor. So that leads me to the IRS. This year, I was contacted by a number of people, both here at APU and personally, people who had their taxes filed before they filed. So what that means is somebody got a hold of their identity, W-2 information or enough information to fake it, and filed tax returns on their behalf. And generally, what the criminals went after was a very large refund. Now, this is usually a two-step process. What will happen is they'll request the refund check will be sent to your house, they'll contact you through a different means to extort it out of you.
Nice.
Yeah. But the IRS, because of their own breach in 2015, has been doing actually a very good job of working with people who are reporting these to rectify the situation. Volume aside, all the reports I've gotten back from folks who've had this happen have recorded a very positive interaction with the IRS. I know that's something you will never hear me say out loud. But I have to acknowledge that the IRS is doing a good job with remediation, even though they did a very poor job at preventing the barn door being opened in the first place. So let's talk about this breach. Last year, the IRS initially reported 100,000 identities, taxpayer identities stolen. That included full name, date of birth, social security number, mailing address, all pertinent contact information, including social security number. And it opened access to they had a tool going then that they've since shut down that allowed a criminal, if they had that information, to go line by line and get all of your financial information that you were reporting. So anything that you reported to the IRS was available to the crooks, period. So if we look at it in context of total U.S. population and 100,000 people, it's actually not bad. It's kind of a drop in the bucket. Well, then a few months later, it went to 334,000. And then a few months after that, it went to 700,000. So at this point, it's really safe to say we don't know how big this breach is still. They're under investigation. It was interesting. there's a quote by the IRS Inspector General who says, computer security has been problematic for the IRS since 1997. You know, if you remember what computing was like in 1997, that's a pretty profound statement. Because the difference in technology between then and now is significant. And, you know, for the IRS Inspector General to go forward and make that statement is pretty telling, because this organization is one of the biggest repositories of your everything about you, plus your financials, period. Run by the lowest bidder. So, you know, if you're a victim of, especially one of the tax fraud events, follow the steps on our stolen identity page on security.ap.edu. The FTC also has an outstanding website now. If you just search identity theft FTC, their page is really, really well done. I went ahead and, you know, I filed a police report. I filed with the FTC and went through all the steps there. And like I said, followed my own instructions. But it's the process for dealing with a stolen identity has gotten so much better than it used to be. And we have, you know, continually kept up the steps on security.ap.edu on how to deal with it once it's happened. So is it going to be a little intrusive? Yeah, it's going to took me maybe 2 hours tops to go through all the things I need to go through. You know, but I also signed up for LifeLock while I was at it. You know, I've mentioned that on the show. Now I'm a customer. So, you know, for $10 a month, why not? You know, am I overly concerned? Not really. Because, you know, again, you've taken all the reasonable steps. Now, to circle back, you know, when we talk about prevention, how do you stop this from happening? Well, the first thing is to obviously you want to consider how many places does your information exist that you know about. Because at the end of the day, they are the custodians of your data. The IRS is one of the biggest. You have very little, if not any, control over how they store your data. Just is what it is. Doctor's office, dentist's office are my favorite targets. The healthcare industry was actually it was the second largest breach platform in 2015. The second largest source of compromised identities. So, you know, as we go through this, you know, what are some steps we can do? Well, one of the biggest ones is still put a freeze on your credit. That's a proactive step. Now, it wouldn't have stopped a new account creation like was in my case, but it would stop anybody trying to open a credit card, take a bank loan, buy a house. So any of those significant problems that can be very hard to undo and can take a while, a credit freeze will just stop it flat out from even starting. So there are steps you can take. Another thing, and I know we beat this horse to death, Holly, is make sure that you're using individual passwords on all your different accounts and use a password manager to keep it all straight. But your personal email account is your single most important account, because that's where all the password resets are going to go. That's where a lot of the personal information can be found about you if somebody were to compromise that account. All they have to do is read. You know, and your social media accounts, and what I found is people who use one password for a lot of different services have them all linked together anyway. Mm-hmm. So if somebody wants to do research on you, spend a whole 5 minutes, they could probably answer most security questions about you. Which leads us to another oldie but goodie, Holly, and I know this is your favorite. is with security answers, use fake answers.
Fake answers works great.
Record it, obviously, somewhere safe, but use
In my
fake
LastPass
answers.
account.
Yep. I know people that do that per account. They have, different fake answers per account. That's a great way to go.
I started doing that, but then it can get confusing at times. I mean, they're all laid out and everything. So yeah, but I've done that. I've got some different, answers for different sites.
Right. So, just to close with, if identity theft happens, there are steps you can take pretty quickly to really shut it down and move on with life. It doesn't have to be the end of the world. Now, depending on the type of theft, if somebody was successful in filing a return with the IRS, that could take some time to undo. But again, the IRS is actually doing a very good job this year of dealing with those incidents. Again, but also having a police report filed, big deal. Because that way, if you have to provide that report number for any services, having it just makes everything simpler. In my police department, I submitted the whole thing online.
Wow, I didn't realize you could do that. That's nice.
Yeah, it's so common for them that they have an online tool to do it.
Which is really kind of sad, though.
Yeah.
Well, I know we had an employee here at the university several years ago. She was the victim of identity theft, and it was an absolute nightmare for her. So it's nice to hear that our is catching up the process and start helping clean up faster, because for her it was just an absolute nightmare.
And it can be, but generally speaking, it's gotten a lot better than it used to be. So, but yeah, no, I thought our viewers would probably get a kick out of knowing that my stuff actually got compromised as well. So my guess is I was probably part of the IRS breach.
Chances are, because you always practice good habits, so that as you said, it's not if but when.
Right.
But because there's so much of it out of our control.
Yep. I mean, but when you think about the sheer number of places where your data exists, it's pretty staggering, and it doesn't provide comfort.
Yeah, no, I probably won't sleep again tonight. If you have a question for Shawn regarding the IRS breach, or ideas, questions you have for him, you can go ahead. As I said, if you're watching on YouTube, you would just click the join the conversation link in the lower left hand corner, and it should pop you into the Q&A app. So question, Shawn, while we wait for some hopefully other questions, is my mom recently passed away, and what is the process for when someone passes and if you want to put a credit freeze on their accounts and on their social security number?
Yep. Now it varies per organization, but generally you're going to need a death certificate, and you'll have to provide that to the bureaus, the 3 credit bureaus. But we have the steps published up on security.ap.edu for handling deceased family members. So it's a pretty straightforward process as long as you have the death certificate.
And again, hopefully somebody's got some other good questions. One of the downsides of your fake answers, or even security questions in general, is when someone passes, getting into those accounts in a timely manner, which has been a challenge. Most of them I was into before she passed, but there were a couple that were like, okay, how are we going to get there?
Yeah. Yeah, and in your particular case, that was a tough challenge because you didn't have all the information to get into some of those accounts, which that makes even things like power of attorney and those legal considerations even more challenging in an already stressful situation.
Well, I'm not seeing any questions pop up, so I'm thinking that we're good here. Any final thoughts, Shawn, as far as dealing with your identity and becoming you again?
Just do your best to limit the number of places where your name, address, social, etc. is going to live. It's harder and harder these days, but at least if you know where they are, you stand a slightly better chance of being able to deal with it, and also pay attention. So the banks have, banks and credit cards primarily have great tools, add-on security tools for your account data and all that other stuff. Use it. They have two-factor. They have text messaging for different types of account changes. All those additional security tools are available to help protect you. Like
And
I
also,
said, my bank was outstanding. I was really impressed.
that's nice. I would say, do you want to share the name of the bank so we either give them kudos, or is that okay? On the issue of LifeLock, I wanted to mention, if you're a AAA member already, part of the services you have with AAA is LifeLock. I think it's the $10
Right.
level protection that you can get for free as a AAA member.
Oh, wow.
So you can check into that, and I need to probably do that for me. I haven't actually. I'm a bad person. So upcoming Hangouts next Tuesday, July 12th at 2 p.m. Hangout with IMT is going to be broadcasting live from the IMT support desk. We'll be talking with Diana and some of the students, and I think Andy will be there, and we'll be showing off the new support.apu.edu website. And we'll, people are invited to come say hi during the Hangout. So we're excited about that. It'll be a lot of fun. And who knows, there might be even candy and other prizes. I never know what I'll come up with.
I don't know if you've seen it yet, but to our audience, that new site is sharp.
Yeah. Very excited about that. The team did a great job. And so we'll be talking about that and just talking about the services at the support desk and giving people a chance to kind of meet some of those students that they talk to when they call 5050.
Absolutely.
So that is next Tuesday at 2 p.m. And with that, Shawn, anything else going once?
I think that covers it.
All right. Well, until next month, we will see you later. If you've got any questions, always feel free to email iso@apu.edu.
All right. See you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.